Hi everyone, it's Christina from Music World. Today I'm answering the question, how can I make practice a regular daily, weekly routine? Firstly, it would be beneficial to work out when exactly you have a bit more time available and look at fitting in your practice then. So ideally we would like to make it a habit to practice every day, as I'm sure your teachers probably mentioned to you, or at least to build up to this. Understandably, not everyone has the time to practice every day, but we are going to aim for that, and it is not impossible to achieve. The first step is to work out when you tend to have a bit more time or can make the time available in your weekly schedule. If, like many students, you have a lot of homework or extra activities, you might have to look at making some adjustments to your current timetable. So if, unlike me, you're a morning person, you might want to aim to fit in some practice maybe before school, or otherwise, if you're not a morning person, maybe before or after dinner. The duration or the length of each practice session will really depend on your level and your age. So if you're a beginner student and you're young, you might only want to do 10 to 15 minutes worth of practice, and that would be okay. But if you are more advanced, you definitely need to do a bit more practice than that. So I would aim for at least half an hour to an hour, and that will help you to cover your pieces and all the requirements that you need to practice. In addition to your weekday practices, if you find that you have a bit more time available, maybe on the weekends, maybe you could aim to fit 1 or 2 practices extra then. So secondly, how should you space out your practice sessions? So if you are pretty busy, maybe you could start by aiming for 3 practice sessions a week. And the way that I'd space them out is like this. So the first practice session would be soon after your lesson so that you remember what was covered and what you need to work on. Then the next practice session I would aim to do a couple of days later, and then the next one a couple of days later again. That way you'll have consistency. And remember, the longer that you leave it between practice sessions, the easier it is to forget what you need to work on. And it's also harder to build that practice into a regular habit. So I definitely advise you don't go 3 or 4 days without practice, as your physical and mental memory will become less accurate. Thirdly, keep yourself accountable by writing a schedule and keeping to that schedule really. So once you've written out a practice schedule, make sure you keep it somewhere in sight, or if you prefer, you could use a phone calendar, maybe with reminders. I know some people find that useful. And the benefit of having some sort of schedule that is visible is that your parents can help to keep you accountable, as bad as that seems for you. But ultimately you want to keep yourself accountable. And once you've got that schedule in place, if you find it useful, you could maybe adopt some sort of reward-based system to help you to stay motivated. Maybe some sort of simple reward each time you achieve your goals or each time you practice. Or maybe you could have some sort of goal at the end of the week. So if you practice a lot, you could watch extra TV or read a book or play a game, or do no practice. Have a day off if you want, as long as you've practiced everything that you need to, of course. Now, one other quick thing, a practice journal might actually assist you as well in keeping track of what you practiced every day and what worked and what didn't work. So you might want to consider implementing that as well. Fourthly, it is good to consider what you'd like to cover in your practice each day. So personally, I like to include a variety of known pieces and lesser known pieces. But I'd like to focus on the newer, more challenging musical material and make that my priority. That way I know that I'm going to improve on those tricky pieces so that overall the piece sounds better. But the main thing is that you set some sort of goal, making sure that you don't play aimlessly. And at the end of the practice session, you want to make sure that you've achieved your goal. That way you know that your time and practice was well spent, and you can move on to the rest of your day knowing that you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. Now, what you do within the practice sessions, like what you're actually practicing, will of course depend on your level and what pieces you're working on. So if you're advanced, you're going to have more pieces and more musical material to cover. It'll also depend on what exam requirements you're doing, maybe what extra fun pieces you're learning, what technical work you're doing. But yeah, definitely keep that goal in place. At least one goal for each practice session, or small mini goals each time. Now, although I mentioned that practicing your lesser known or challenging musical material might be the priority, it's also important to continue to practice those pieces that you have learnt quite well so that you can keep refining them and making them more fluent as well. Now, if you would like a bit more information about how I recommend you plan out or structure your practice, I will be doing another AMA on this later, so stay tuned. So in conclusion, to help create a solid practice routine into your schedule, first lay out your current schedule, identify the spaces or the gaps in your timetable and allocate your practice then. And secondly, make sure that your practices are consistent as much as possible. And thirdly, keep yourself accountable to your schedule that you put out. And then lastly, have a goal for each practice to make sure that you stay motivated, and to also make sure you ensure you spread out your musical material to cover everything needed throughout the week. I hope that this helps and gets you on the way with a strong practice routine. Thanks for the great question, and I look forward to the next one.